Father, we thank you for this day. We truly thank you for our lives, for the time that you've given us. I pray, Father, that you would make us use that time properly that we have upon this earth. Amen. Yesterday we were talking about jurisdiction. And by the way, one thing that I wanted to add in here. Do you have a question? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Question is, let me get this right. He's in this, goes and meets these people. This guy is vulgar and says rotten things about women and has a bad attitude about them. Later on, he is talking to the guy and brings up different things about, you don't look like a believer to me. And the guy is arguing, and he calls him judgmental and says he doesn't have the jurisdiction to say these things. There's a lot of stuff that's in there that we can talk about. First thing, and this one is really on the side, kind of away from that, is the situation he found himself in. Let me explain something. One of the worst things that will happen to you is when someone says, "Hey, I'm going to meet some friends of mine. Do you want to come along?" It sounds real nice. They're inviting you along. I would strongly suggest that you have a cold or that you inoculate yourself with a flu virus or something. Because what he talked about is what will happen very often. Other people may not have the standard of friends that you have. You wind up getting, "Hey, we're having a little get-together for so-and-so's birthday tonight." And you go over there and you find that it's a drunken orgy. "Hey, so-and-so's getting married and we're having this, a batch of us from the Christian church are getting together here and we're going to just get together with him tonight," and you find out that they have a whole lot more different standards than you might over a, quote, bachelor party. And I'm not kidding. You don't know those people. You better think twice before you go getting into a social situation like that. And that's one of the things that happen. Okay, you think your friend is all right, but you get there with this guy and he's, talking all this dirty stuff. Now, the thing is that let's talk about this. And Stephen came to me last night and asked me this stuff, and I said, boy, this would be good to talk to everybody about, so everybody can hear it. And the first place that Stephen went eventually, and we'll try to, if I'm missing some of the things that you said, the first place that he went eventually with this guy was where? Where did he go? Remember what he opened up with? Yeah. If you died tonight, okay? Now, I'm not picking on you, Stephen, but you've been gracious enough to let us hear what you said. And he was doing what he's been told, okay? Now, let me tell you something. No. Let's use your brains. You tell me what's wrong with that question, sir.
It puts them in a sense of fear of oh no, what if I die tonight? I got to get this before I die.
Okay, that's one of the things that definitely causes it is. What else is wrong with it, Mitch?
The salvation after death in heaven is only a small part of the new covenant, and why not ask? Do you think the Lord was offended when He was with you?
That's good. That's real good. That's good. What would Jesus think? Not what would He do? What did He hear?
It's hypothetical.
Okay.
You're not going to die. He's not planning on dying. It's hypothetical.
Yeah.
I mean, you're bringing up a hypothetical question for an argument. And,
Yeah. Stephen, next time go talk to your two brothers before you do it. Yeah, those are correct answers so far, yeah.
He's not the judge of his life, so if he thinks he dies tonight, or if he did die tonight, and he thinks he's in heaven or he's going to heaven, he's not the judge to say whether or not he is.
Okay, did you catch that? Now let me go ahead with what he was saying and get to the answer I'm looking for, because what he said is pretty close to it. You ask anybody, ask the Muslims. Go ahead, ask the Muslims. Ask the most disgusting Catholic, Jehovah Witness, Baptist, Mormon, and atheist, New Age weirdo. The fruitcake standing around the corner full of metal and spiked hair. Are you going to heaven tonight? Either they don't believe in it, or, of course I am. And most of them say, of course I am. Now those questions sound real good. The evangelicals tell us, here's your question, if you died tonight, and they will tell you almost every time, yeah. Because why? They have duped themselves. They have made themselves to be the judge of self. I mean, Catholics will say, if you ever talk to them, what are they going? They will immediately go over to works. I think I've been pretty good. I think I've been all right. I think God's going to be, pretty kind to me. Yes, sir.
See, that question, is used a lot, but you can't leave that question by itself. Yeah, a lot of people say, yes, I believe I'm going to heaven, and you have to follow it up by saying, on what basis?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you expose it.
Yeah.
Not to be the bad guy in the room,
Mm-hmm.
but I do disagree at this point
Mm-hmm.
that it's a bad question to
Okay.
use. Especially, maybe so if you leave it at that, but you have to follow it up by asking, on what basis do you believe that? And that's where you may find out it might be their good works or their church membership or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. I'm a Muslim. It's a good works. Wait a second, I believe in good works if I'm Catholic. The problem is that this is usually not where you're going to go, because they don't care. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I hear what you're saying. Okay, do you hear what he's saying is, wait a second, you don't leave it there, you have to go on to the next level. Okay? And that's what Mitch was bringing up. That's what, it's, but the thing is that they have already, most of them, made up their own religion to give you what, you can come, and even with this guy, what's his standard of measure? Himself. It's not the Word. Okay? Do you understand? Now, I want you to hear what I'm saying, because I hear it and it makes sense. Okay? But his standard of measure is already himself. You can't judge. You can't tell me. Fact is that God has said, yes, you can, and yes, it is his jurisdiction in some ways. This guy's claiming to be a believer. Did he say he was a believer when you were with him before? Okay, when you were with him physically. Okay. And, I hear, it's one way or another you're trying to get them to that, though. To get them to the next question. But the problem is that I don't like to start with that question. I would much rather do something very judgmental and ask them about their behavior. Is it your jurisdiction? Open up to Matthew chapter 18. It is Matthew 18, right? Yeah, verse 15. This is the word of the Lord. This is Jesus Christ talking. And if your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. Y'all catch that? If your brother sins, go and reprove him in private. Did you have a whole lot of people on your IM? Yeah, see? I mean, how dare he ask such a question? You don't have jurisdiction, according to Jesus Christ, I do. But what's the problem in the first place? This guy doesn't believe that anybody has jurisdiction over him. He's the God. He's the judge. Of course I'm going to heaven. I said the magic words. Okay? Goes on. If he listens to you, you've won your brother. If he does not listen, take two or more. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. If he refuses to listen to you in the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and tax gatherer. Paul talks about not eating with such a one. Not even eating with such a one. Did y'all have a meal? Let me tell you my story. Those of you may remember it. This is, boy, a long, long time ago, working at that state school, and there was this lady that I worked with, married with kids and all this stuff, and she went also to church where I went to church. One day I was at work, and the Lord said, you need to go and ask her how things are in her life. Now, I don't know that I would, in fact, I know I wouldn't do that today. Being married, I've got a completely different, thing that I do. But even as a single young man, I might go, Lord, I need to go with somebody before I do that, to a female. And I went and I said, are things okay? And she looked at me and said, yeah, I'm doing just fine. Went on back and I said, boy, that was embarrassing, Lord. He said, go do it again. I went and did it 2 more times. She got mad. Said, I'm fine, leave me alone. Went back and the Lord said, you're going to see her life completely wash out. And she's lying to you. The choir director at the church was a sociopath. No one knew it because they're good at what they do. They are silver-tongued, they're very charming, and they're chronic liars. He began to have an affair with this woman. He split the marriage up. He was married. Well, but it didn't matter. This was about the 5th or 6th time he'd done it. No, it was more than that. Going through different places. He would just come in and, steal some woman somewhere. No big deal. And then just leave her stomped on the ground somewhere. His wife was a godly woman. She had, at least I was told, I don't think I ever really met her, but everybody just, that said, oh, you can't believe this woman. She's the most godly. She refused to divorce him and all this other stuff. And he would just continue on with this. By the time that he left, he had stolen thousands of dollars from that church and had worked for a radio station there in town, part-time, and had stolen money from them too. That couple knew that I knew what was happening. And of course she quit speaking to me, and I didn't have any use for him. One day he calls me up there, and he at work. And he said, hey, I want to take you out for lunch tomorrow. I said, well, he said, do you have anything going on? I said, no, I guess I can do that. So we went to lunch. And we went out to eat, and he starts talking. So how about this weather? This is something, isn't it? And going, well, yeah, and he just makes, the whole time was the most shallow, trite foolishness you've ever seen in your life. I thought, this guy didn't care anything about me. What is this about? And I remember getting back going, what was that about? And I got out, went back in the building, and went, oh, I need to get something out of my car. I walked back out, and they were standing there talking. And the Lord just jabbed me in the heart. He said, let me tell you what happened. He said, he is now telling her that he put you in your place, that you will not, that you fully are in full agreement with what they're doing, and et cetera, et cetera. And I just went, wow, that's amazing. And sure enough, she wound up, split up in the divorce, and they had divorce and all this other stuff. The guy did the things that he did. But boy, did I learn a lesson. You do not eat with such a one. You do not eat with such a one. And you didn't know, but you have to keep it in mind. Now, did he have jurisdiction to do those things, to say stuff like that? It's a brother, supposedly a brother. And the answer is, according to Matthew 18, you do. Paul talks often about, reproving brothers and trying to win them back and this kind of thing. And you see him doing that kind of thing. But what he said was, you don't have jurisdiction there. And the Bible said you did. Okay? And of course, their other favorite little word is what? Judging. Don't judge. What does Paul tell us? Don't you know that you're going to judge angels? Don't you know that you're going to judge angels? Well, wait a second. What's the problem here? How do you figure this out? Friends, there's a whole lot of difference between judging and reality. If you steal from me, it is not a judgmental statement for me to say, you're a thief. That's truth. Do you understand what I just said? That's not judgment. That person is a thief. Why? They stole from me. Do you understand? Now, if I say that person is a thief because he's a jerk, that person is a thief because he doesn't have any money, that person is a thief because he's a self-centered, egotistical maniac, what have I done? I've judged. If I go around just blurting that out without first confronting them, then I'm being a judge. If I'm trying to come up with a way to take out retribution against them and hurt them, now I'm being a judge. But Matthew 18 is not about hurting people. Let me show you the way Matthew 18 works. It starts out with the concern. The first concern is the individual. Why? You go in private. It's just you, okay? Just you. You go to the individual. Everybody understand? What's the concern right now is winning your brother, and who do we see that did this? Somebody tell me. That was going to do it anyway. Nathan and David, yeah. We don't know who was around, but we can you assume that at least was done in private. Joseph, Mary's husband. Being a righteous man, he looks at this woman and she's pregnant. He looks at her and goes, she must have gotten pregnant. But not wishing, he didn't want to embarrass her. He loved her. He cared about her. And so he was going to do what? He was going to put her away privately. Now, it still would have gotten out, you know. But the fact is that he didn't want to hurt her in any way. So he was going to privately do this thing. And he thought, wait a second, this is what the law says I need to do, and so I'm going to do that. And the Lord says, no, wait a second, you know, I'm in this, and Joseph, you're going to be her covering. You're going to be her covering, okay? And so the first point was the individual. If the individual will not turn, then it is still the individual, but it's begun to move a little bit because now it is you plus others. Now it's not just you. It's not just you that knows this is going on. The next step is that you and others go to the individual. Now, you need to understand where it says witnesses. It doesn't mean witnesses of the crime. Perhaps they didn't see it. Perhaps they're not seeing these things. But you go to them and say, I need a witness to come with me. What's the witness for? Sir?
So they can't talk to the lady and say, yeah, we got everything squared away.
Yeah.
They know what you talked about.
That's right. That's so that they can't go, this person came and yelled at me, this person came and was really horrible to me, and you know, they didn't come to me in the proper way, and they said all this, and this, and you're going, what's the purpose? The purpose is the restoration of the individual. And this is the purpose, is restoration of the individual. That's where we start out. Restoration of the individual. Wait a second, he's resistant to one person coming and rebuking him. Wait a second, God says, okay, what we're going to do is do more. So we're going to come, and wait a second, now we've got a bit of a crowd that is saying, we're hearing him say this, and you need to change. And so this is going on here, but it's still restoration of the individual, but now he's been exposed just a little bit more. Okay? He's been exposed just a little bit more. Then what does it say? How does it put it? Then you go to the church. Okay. We still have the individual here, but now we've got something else that's going on. The church. Now, friends, let's look at the way it says it. Verse 17. If he refuses to listen to them, so we've gone from a one to a small number, tell it to the church. Tell it to the church. What's the church? Remember, it is not the organized body. It is the ecclesia. And I'm telling you something. This thing of, well, we had to church somebody the other day. It's an old phrase, but they used to call them, they had to church them. And what they meant is that they're going to get this person that is in rebellion against God's word, rebellion against the truth, won't listen to one person, won't listen to a group, and they're going to say, we want you to come to church on Sunday so you can stand up in front of everybody. I've actually heard of people doing this. And they get them and stand them up there and say, this is what this guy has done. Let me tell you something, folks. That's not what the Bible just said. Because why did they make that mistake?
They think the church is the body.
Yeah. They defined church wrongly. The church is the ecclesia. The ecclesia, literally called out ones. It is not an organized religious body. It is not an organized religious body. Sir?
What's interesting also is the contrast between verse 16 and 17. It says, if he will not hear you, then take with you one or two more. And then verse 17, if he won't hear them, take it to the church.
Yeah.
Not take with you the church.
The church. You tell it to the church. Okay? And so, now let me explain what Jesus has just done. He has said, you now have permission to gossip. Now, I don't really mean it quite like that, but what's the point? We have gone from the restoration of the person. Now something else has happened, is that this restoration has changed from an R to a P. What's the P? Protection. Protection of the church. Now it's not standing up here. I can sit here and I'm talking to Aaron and go, guess what? Listen, I need to tell you something. Adam is going to steal from you. He's been stealing from people all over the place. I can't believe it. We've gone to him with witnesses. We've gone alone. And he's stealing. If you are doing business with him, you better watch out. And it gets out into the church. Now is because we've got this guy in here that's a thief. You sorry thing. We've got this thief, and we are saying the church better know about it. Or, an adulterer or whatever he may be. For protection of the church. Everybody understand? You guys with me? It's not this formalized goofball thing where we're going to get... I'm telling you what, I'm already not believing in that authority, and you tell me you're inviting me over so that you can embarrass me in public, I ain't showing up. Not in the United States. Now, you might pull that off in some Catholic country that is owned by the Pope, but you're not going to do it here. I'm not going to show up. What's it taught? Because it never meant that. You tell it to the church. You tell people so that they will be forewarned about this person. And I might add, it's not just your little congregation. Because what's this clown going to do? Exactly what that clown I just described to you about. He's going to go to the next town and to the next congregation. Do you hear me? He's going to go to the next town and the next congregation and do exactly the same thing. And when I'm in this position, and I've gone through Matthew 18, and I hear about somebody that I know that we have had to go to and deal with them, when I hear about them going into ministry somewhere or moving on down the line in something, I'm going to call. I'm going to call. You better watch out for this one. He was here and he did that and he did this and he did this. And I'm telling you, he'll put on the good show, but you better watch out. Do you understand? It's not the local church. No. It's not just your congregation. It's the church. You have brothers and sisters in the Catholic Church. You have brothers and sisters in the Church of Christ. And they need to know that that's what this person is. That that's what's going on. We see Paul doing this in the church in Corinth. What's the next step after this? Let them be to you as a Gentile. Now, what was the Jew looking at a Gentile? I can't touch them. They're unclean. I'm not supposed to speak with them. I'm not to eat with them. Paul gives us this description of it there in 1 Corinthians. We've got a guy that's living with his father's wife. Okay? And this is not, Paul is going, this is an abomination. This is horrible. You guys should have mourned over this. You need to quit fellowshipping with him, because the next thing is, again, the individual is still, the purpose continues to be, we want to restore him. But the church has been warned, and the church has cut this guy off, okay, from fellowship. Turn over to 2 Corinthians. And all I have to do is find it. Does anybody know where I'm looking for? What? Louder. Chapter 5?
No, that's First Corinthians.
Chapter 2. We'll go ahead. Okay, yeah, chapter 2. Paul is already in 1 Corinthians. He said, look, get away from this guy, etc., etc. Chapter 2. Do I want to go up higher than that? No. Okay. Chapter 2. I determined this for my own sake. I would not come in sorrow again. For if I cause you sorrow, who then makes me glad but the one whom I made sorrowful? This is the very thing I wrote you, lest when I came I should have sorrow from those who ought to make me. Is that right? 5. Then he has caused sorrow. He's caused sorrow not to me, some degree in order not to say too much to all of you. Sufficient for such a one is this punishment which was inflicted by the majority. Notice he didn't say by all. Did you notice that? What does it say in King James? By many. Notice he did not say by all. There's a little bit of wisdom there. I love the Bible. I mean, it is so precise. Because what you're going to find when you do this? What you're going to find? Oh, we can't be judgmental. Oh, we can't do this to this poor person. Oh, he's going to have a label. Oh, he's going to be labeled the rest of his life. People are going to talk about him. I wasn't the one that did it. I'm not doing the thievery. It was Adam. I'm not committing adultery. I'm not doing these things. He did it. He chose. And then when we went to him privately, he refused to listen. Then we went to him with a small group. He refused to listen. Then we told it to the church. What's interesting also, when you tell it to the church, is it doesn't say the church goes to him, but what does it say immediately after that? If he will not listen to the church. What's going on? Do you know the church is talking about you? What? Yeah, everybody's talking about you. What? You were warned. And you didn't do it. Now, Paul comes up here and says, I urge you, verse 8. What does he say? No, it's verse 7. So that on the contrary, you should rather forgive and comfort him, lest somehow such a one be overwhelmed by excessive sorrow. Wherefore I urge you to reaffirm your love for him. Okay? If the guy if he's come and he's repenting, and I think somewhere it kind of intimates that that's what went on. The guy is being overcome by excessive sorrow. And Paul is saying, look, he is responding now. He's responding. Your job as believers is now you forgive and you go on. Now, this guy is not somebody you're going to throw back into ministry right away. We can assume he's not going to be made in the position of elder or whatever. He's been warned and he really resisted things. He's somebody that's going to have to be rediscipled. Okay? He's going to have to reestablish the trust that you would have in him. Because right now, let's get real. There's a difference between forgiving and trusting. There's a difference between forgiving and trusting. I can forgive someone doesn't mean I have to trust them anymore. Do you understand? They chose to make this situation in that vein. But it's interesting, again, going back to what we said, that the majority are many. Because you will find in these congregations those that are all concerned about the poor sinner. Now, Mary and I call them pig farmers from the prodigal son. There are pig farmers waiting all over the place. Oh, his parents were so bad to him. What'd they do? They homeschooled him. That's bad. Yes. Why? That child probably has no social skills. I think he's probably got pretty good social skills. He's fooling you. It's amazing to watch this stuff. You can watch it. You may have already seen it. The prodigal takes off. He goes, gets the job with the pig farmer. And after a little while, everybody at the pig ranch begins to find out exactly what the parents been saying all along. Because even at a pig ranch, there's a few rules and regulations. But not with this kind of guy. Nope. He puts on the show a little bit, and then pretty soon, once he's got the person duped and thinking he starts to disobey a little bit here and disobey a little bit there. You understand what I'm saying, guys? And with that, you can pull up Mrs. Davis' chair, it's fine. Just don't let her know you're sitting in it. And even the pig farmers sometimes wake up. Now, they tend to be kind of a slow lot. And once a pig farmer, a lot of times always a pig farmer, there's always some other prodigal they're waiting to save somewhere from the fundamentalist idiots that would do such things to their children. So it's the many, it's the majority. But and it'll split churches up. But that's what the spirit of this is about. Hang on, Seth, I'll get to you, but I want you to raise your hand in a minute, but I want to go on. Let me explain something. What was the deal with, let's go to the guy here, and you guys need to make notes of this in your brain, and you need to get ready for it. What was the basic underlying motive? Is that the way I want to put it? The guy in 1 Corinthians, okay, that they're bringing back into the fold here, okay? What did he do? What did he do? And I'm going to show you that it continued on. What did he do? Come on, go ahead. Just say stuff. What? Fornication. Okay. Fornication. Adultery. Now, what? Let's go with fornication. Let's go with adultery. He certainly was probably doing fornication, but it was adultery. What is adultery? Taking someone else's position. Again, we've just gotten back to jurisdiction again, but it's taking someone else's position. If you take someone else's, here's the two. Here's the two. Everybody got this? I want you to see. Here's the two. And this person comes in from over here to take someone else's position. What happens to the two that are one? They're divided. Got it? You need to hear what I just said to you. You need to make note of this. You are going to see it. You're going to be in it. They are divided. Sufficient for this guy was the judgment of the what? The majority of the many. What happened? Division. You catch this? Guys, I'm serious. I'm deadly serious. I've not said anything quite this serious. I've said a lot more important things than this, but you need to hear it. The purpose of this stuff is division. 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 Because even in this thing, even in something like this, the guy is living with his father's wife. They have been divided. He's coming in and bringing about this division. What is the spirit of it? It continues to divide, and that is the fruit of the wolf in sheep's clothing. Satan, it says in him in the garden that he was more subtle, more beautiful than any of the other animals. That this what the serpent was. Satan appears as an angel of light. And his very name is accuser of the brethren, or is the accuser of the brethren. His very name is division. His very name is that. His very nature is rebellion. His very nature took 1/3 of the angels out of heaven. His very nature is to divide. And that is the spirit that this guy was of. That is the spirit that so many people are of. And it is amazing to watch it continue to divide and divide and divide and divide and divide and divide. Wherever they go, that's what the purpose is to divide. Are you guys catching that? Did I yell it loud enough? Because I'll yell it again. This is what it's about. If you are in a position in the church or whatever it is you're doing. Their purpose is to divide. I've got you, and you that I've got to get to. So everybody kind of keep what you have to say. And I just forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, that's what the purpose is. It is what the purpose is bringing about division. Seth.
I just wanted to make a real quick comment on back to judging people, and I mean, I'm not familiar with. I've done a study to where I would be totally familiar with all of Scripture that talks about judging, but in John, Jesus does specifically say that when we judge, we're not to judge according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Judgment that's right with or according to Scripture. And I think a lot of times what people confuse, you're judging me with you're condemning me.
Yeah.
And those are two different things. I don't have the power, nor does Christ say he came to condemn. He said he didn't come to
That's right.
condemn the world. But yet they condemn themselves. And I think the most harshest judgment, but still what is righteous judgment, is when we hold ourselves to the same standard of the person we're really, I guess you could say, judging, but we're judging according to Scripture. In other words, I'm only going to come to you and tell you what I've seen is wrong because I hold myself to that same standard.
That's right.
Because that's what's
That's
Scripture.
right.
And according to the appearance, as what the Pharisees here were doing with when Jesus healed that guy, was, here they weren't holding themselves to that same standard, because here they were circumcising people on the Sabbath, and he's like, hey, you guys circumcise, but yet here I'm healing a guy. I mean, what's the same?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. One of and that's really good. One of the places where the world, or where people get upset, is where people makes it about music. We go, I can't be around you. You got that rotten, terrible, Christian hard rock music. Okay? And we go, we can't do that. And they take that as being judgmental. And unfortunately, they're right. Because what's the problem? We've not discerned what's going on in them. Because the music is the symptom. And it's like getting mad at somebody. Oh, how dare you? You sneezed. Well, yeah, and not realizing they've got a cold. Okay? We get all upset. Oh, that person sneezes. Did you know they sneeze? And we go talking about the music. That's not the problem. You see, the problem is what's going on in the heart. That's why I naturally can't have fellowship with a person like that. It's just natural. I don't have to go, I have to condemn you. I don't have to go, I can't touch you. No. The fact is that deep fellowship is going to be cut off just in a natural way. Because they're going to start saying a whole lot of things that I promise you, because out of the abundance of their heart, it's not going to be just what they listen to, but it's also going to be their statements, their lack of other standards in their lives. And I'm naturally not going to have fellowship with them. I don't have to sit there and judge them for that. But they're not going to want to hang around me. Do you think I get invited to a whole lot of, hey, it's happy hour, do you want to come along? I mean, when I worked for the state in a secular job, the invitations just didn't come very often. I think it was 0, if I remember correctly. Why? They knew who I was. I'm not going to show up over at the bar. Thank you. It's not going to happen. Do you understand, guys? What happened? It's a natural division. And somebody listening to that music and compromising those areas, there's going to be a natural division between me and them. I don't have to condemn them for that. I don't have to. My job is to, what's my job? Disciple them. Try to get God's word in them. I don't remember if I know we talked about this thing the other day, but I don't think we talked about it publicly. Maybe I did. About the guy that was taking his daughter to Christian rock concerts. Did we talk about that in here publicly? Okay. This guy came to me, and he had some pretty serious issues. And one of those serious issues was his wife had looked at him and said, I've had it with you. He was doing all sorts of things. And she said, if you don't go get discipled by Mike Davis, I'm going to leave you. Well, suddenly he had motivation. Okay? Okay, I'm going to go. I mean, he is running after me. You know, my wife told me this. I said, okay, we'll get started. Now, one of the areas of compromise or maybe the evidences of the symptoms was he listened to Christian rock music. Now, one of the problems with Christian rock music is that it starts out as a symptom, but eventually it gets bad enough that it becomes part of the disease process. And it really, I mean, you see this with, again, the illustration is rheumatoid arthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, it starts, your joints start to hurt, and so you don't want to move them. And what happens then, eventually they get kind of frozen into those positions and they begin to deform. What's the answer? One of the things that you have to do is, despite the horrible pain, is you've got to keep moving the thing, because otherwise the joint's going to freeze up and you're going to be in serious problem. But the pain eventually becomes part of the disease process if you don't keep moving. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so the music eventually becomes part of the disease process. With this guy, he would take his oldest daughter, and his wife had fussed at him, and he would not change. He would, some Christian group or whatever group was coming into town, and he was going to go, and he would take his oldest daughter, and that would be their date night together. And he would take her to listen to this music. Well, he comes to me to get discipled, and I didn't start fussing about that music. Didn't say a thing. Where did I start? Okay, it's time for you to start memorizing the 10 Commandments and begin to meditate upon it. And he began to meditate day and night on the 10 Commandments. And I don't know how long it was. It was a matter of weeks, a few months at the most, two months probably at the most, that he came to the conclusion, you know what, this music is wrong. I shouldn't be listening to this stuff. Told his wife and quit and me and quit going to the concerts. I didn't have to judge him for that. What happened? I didn't even have to talk to him about it. When he got the truth in him and the law came to him, and suddenly he realized that he was accountable before God, and God began to wash him clean with that law, and with that law began to draw him unto Jesus Christ, he was able to go, there's something amiss in my life, and that's part of it. And there's a number of other things he had to get rid of too, but that was one of them. And I didn't have to say a word. Do you understand, guys? Okay? Didn't have to say a word. And we so often are condemned for our condemnations. And our condemnation is right. You know, we're wrong when we're condemning people and not hearing and not understanding what the real issue is in their life. Why do people listen to that music? Well, obviously there's a lot of compromise in their lives. They don't know the way of righteousness. They are, how does it say in Timothy there? A form of godliness. A form of godliness, but they deny the power of godliness. That's what that verse says. Denying the power thereof, what does that mean? What it means is that the Bible is saying this, there's great power in godliness. There is great power in godliness. And they have a form of godliness, and we listen to all the right music, and we got the t-shirts, and we are on fire for God, man. We are on fire for God. They're on fire for their flesh. That's the reality of it. Okay? But what has happened is they deny the power of a godly life. What do they say is power? Come on, they say it with the very thing they talk about as far as the music. Tell me. What do they say? What's their excuse for the music?
What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it? Okay, that's one. What?
I like it.
I like it? What's the center of the whole thing? My flesh. It's my pleasure. What else? Come on, you good evangelicals. It makes me feel good. Okay, it's done the same thing. What else? Draws the people in. That's called manipulation. You see, it's got nothing to do with godliness. That is, we're using this to draw people in. We're using this to bait. It's bait and switch. You know, it's flicking the lure out in front of them with something that's ungodly. To me, the answer to it is, if that is okay. You guys have heard me say this one before. I just love the shock value of the whole thing. Oh, this is the rock music that gets the young people in. We need to go over to Malachi, and Malachi says we're supposed to be, dealing with the fathers. Oh yeah, the fathers. So what we need to do, I'm telling you, this is the way. You want to get these people in? You want to get them in. What you need to do is advertise in the paper and on the radio that First Baptist is serving up fathers only, because this is a fathers meeting, and we want you fathers to come in so we can get to know you, and serve them up free beer. Free beer. You bet. Free beer, and we're going to be listening to country western music all night long. Come on in. We're going to be listening to free beer and free country music. Then eventually we're going to be listening to the floor, because we're going to have lots of beer. But it brought them in. You tell me, I'm listening. What's the difference? There is none. Shout it from the pulpit the next time you're up there and they're saying that stuff. Oh, we would never do that. It's manipulation, and it's not based on truth, and it is a form of godliness, but it denies the power of godliness. Instead, what it does is says the power of the Tower of Babel, the tower of being together, of synergy, of all of these different things. We can do it. Rah, rah. We're going to, our church is growing. Look at the size of our youth group. Isn't this exciting? Get out of my face with that stuff. You're unbiblical. You're wrong. You're walking in an ungodly way. But I don't have to sit there and judge the people for it. The truth is that sadly enough, the fruit will come out. And it's coming out in the church today. An outbreak of immorality, an outbreak of compromise, an outbreak of turning away from the Word like no one can believe. We go to these old folks' places, and those of you that have been around for a while know what the reaction is. I don't know that there's hardly been a time when we're not there and people are not sitting there with tears in their eyes. This is probably before your time, but it was one of the first, I think it was the first time we ever went to the senior citizens group there in Marble Falls. We finished, all we did was sing. We just sang hymns. All we did was, when we ate with these people, is that when they came to the tables, we stood up before them and honored them. All we did was actually speak to them. All we did was scatter out instead of sitting in a group like most youth groups do, sitting all together. Instead, we scattered out and talked to the people. All we did was ask them about their lives and listened. All we did was pick up their plates when they were through and served them. All we did was ask them what else they could have. And when we finished singing, a fellow stood up, tears going down his eyes. Again, y'all weren't here for this one. This is a good while back. And he said, I did not know that there were young people in the world still that were like this. I thought they were all gone. He said, I still have hope. The last time I heard him say something about it, he said, I can die now with hope. That there are people that are going to be carrying on the way of righteousness and not the way of compromise, because he went to a church where they wouldn't even speak to him. The young people are all important. By the way, as long as we're talking about youth groups, who started the first youth groups? You guys know, you've heard me say it before. Who's the first person to start a youth group? You remember? You do not remember. We have ways to make you remember. Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler started youth groups, and the church picked it up. Check it out, mein Herr. He is the man that did it. It worked then, it will work now. If you want the power. If you want the godliness, you'll have to go to talk to someone else. But our purpose is power. That's the purpose of youth groups. It's power and manipulation, and often lust. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but you guys need to be ready to preach to other people when you go out of here. And yeah, I do say things like this to people other than y'all. It is time. It is time that we quit the foolishness, that we quit the compromise, and that men such as yourselves Act like men. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be nasty. But how dare you compromise? How dare you sit there and go, well, I'm not going to tell them the truth in love. It is time that we got some spine and backbone. And when people are coming up with these silly, goofball excuses that in your times of meditation upon this hill, you've asked God, when they say this, what do I say? That's part of meditation. That is part of meditation. And you let God begin to tell you, here's the words that you say. Here's the answer to this question. Here's the question to this question. So that you could be getting in people's faces with the truth. But you have to have in your life not just a form of godliness. It's got to be godliness. I'm not talking about perfection. No. I'm talking about maturity. I'm talking about that I continue to seek His face. You guys following what I'm saying to you? I am telling you, I am saying this, that when you walk out of here, one of my greatest desires is for you to be men. 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 Not man the way that the world describes it, but the way that our Father describes what His man is. And it will be tough, and it will be painful, and it's going to hurt. Why would Paul say, be good soldiers with me? Because soldiering hurts. Soldiering hurts. Soldiering gets people killed. In the old days of the movies, the guy would get shot. There wouldn't even be blood. Nowadays, if you see any of the what was the Civil War movie, Glory. Did anybody ever see Glory in here? You did? Remember the opening scene? The opening scene, it was so they could make sure. The battles were bad, but the opening scene, and God's in generals too. Fredericksburg, and they're laying out there at night. This is the way it was. Bullets splattering into the bodies all around them. Whack, whack, whack. They make it really real. The opening scene of Glory, there's this guy running out across the field in this big charge. And don't ask me how they did this. I don't know. The stunt man had to have been paid extra for this. But he's running out across here, and his head just suddenly explodes. It's gone. And the body takes a couple more steps and falls over. You're going, they need to take the L out of this movie. It's not Glory. It's Glory. Whoa. It's the reality of it. Jim Elliot died. The people around him died, dead. A lot of other missionaries died. A lot of other people give their life a living death. Sister Teresa died, but she lived the whole time a living death. These people must be our heroes. My goodness alive, they're people we need to look at and go, it's incredible. They turned away from the things of this world, and I have to have my luxury, and I have to have my way. And they were men, laying down their lives for others. Heroes are not born in time of peace. Heroes are not born. We look up to heroes, but they're not born in time of peace. We never would have known about Stonewall Jackson except that he was a horrible professor if the Civil War had not come along. We would have barely known about Robert E. Lee, maybe a little bit, but not much. Or Lincoln. Lincoln stood up and said, this thing is evil. This is awful. It needs to have an end put to it. He was one of the most unpopular people in the entire world. And he kept on going, but I got a job to do. The Almighty, as he put it, has given it to me. He's a hero. These other men were heroes. Wait a second, they're fighting on the other side. In a lot of ways, no, not really. It was to slap the United States around. And they weren't fighting for slavery, and at least those two guys weren't. A lot of other people might have been. But that's not what the point is. The point is under pressure and under hardship, they stood up and they were men. That doesn't mean mean, but it does mean firm. I'm sorry, I'm not going to move. The person I was telling you about last night, that it wasn't the first time they called up wanting to gossip. It was almost every time. And when I finally said, no, they don't like me anymore. Oh, they don't like me. And I don't care. I really don't care. And I mean, you need to hear me. I don't care. They may say horrible things about me, and they do. And I don't care. Because you must learn to stand with the truth. And when you stand with the truth, you're going to get shot. You're going to get shot and wounded, and the people around you are going to have the same thing. That was me spinning off of you. You had a question or comment half an hour ago? Sorry. I take my shots when I get them, okay?
I just noticed the verse that went along with what you were saying earlier about the purpose of these people with idolatry and all that is always division. And in verse 11 it says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Basically, Paul's just saying that he sees the spiritual battles, just what you were talking about.
Yeah.
The purpose of it all is to divide the
To divide. Yeah, that's good. And I wonder if he's been successful. You want to start counting the denominations in this little group alone. Of course, I'm sure that they're getting less and less a hold on you, gentlemen, shall we say. But it's unbelievable. This great division in the body of Christ. If you can't beat them, you join them. He joined. And guess what happened? Yeah, youth groups. Division. But what is youth groups? Come on. It's division. It's division. Another story. Many years ago, told this one before. I'll get to you, Dave. He's next here, so I'll get to you. Back when the kids were little, we took spring break in May, I think, because nobody else was taking spring break at that time. And we went up to Colorado, and we rode the train from Durango to Silverton and back. You ever done that? It's a pretty amazing ride. Back through the mountains there and everything. It's really cool. Right, Charlie? You've never done it, huh? You don't need to. You live there. Yeah. So who cares about Silverton and Durango? Y'all live at over 6,000 feet now, right?
Yeah, I think.
You used to live at over 9. Yeah. Chris told me that for it was a good while, the only way they could get in out to they had their car parked out and they would in and out by snowmobile. Yeah.
We had to stuck out for a while.
Yeah. So who cares about Silverton and Durango when you got that? But we were on this train and everybody in it except another family was all white-headed. Why? They knew at the time to go to Colorado. The schools are not out yet and you can go and have a good time. We were sitting there, and the ride back, you're seeing the same country that you just saw, and so it could be a little on the dull side. They said, make sure you bring a book, so we brought a book and all this stuff. Well, the kids weren't going to read books, and they started talking to an old couple beside them, asking them questions, where are you from, what's the place that you like, and all this other stuff. And after talking to them for a pretty good while, they said, can we walk back to the back of the train? I said, sure. So they went on back and gone for a while, and they came back. And we were getting off the train, and that old couple walked up to us. Tears in their eyes. I can't believe. I haven't talked to young people like that in years. They were little, but they wanted to talk to us. And as they were saying this thing, another couple walked by, and they stopped and said, were those your kids? They came and started talking to us back there just like we were humans. What does youth group tell you? No, you don't honor them. You don't listen to them. Perhaps I should say that it wasn't Adolf that introduced youth groups. Biblically, it would have been Absalom. Because what did he do? Not Absalom, I'm sorry. Who? Rehoboam. What did he do? He took the counsel of his snotty-nosed youth group and cut off the gray heads. By the way, that's one of the purposes of the music, too. Did you know that? Do you know, you can get this, there are the websites that actually have this, and people spend thousands of dollars to go to these conferences, and the purpose of the conference is one thing, to tell you how to get contemporary music. I mean, and they pay big bucks for this, and it's out on the internet. I've made a copy of it, and maybe I need to try to find it in my computer somewhere and get a thing to you. The purpose is to get the contemporary. You have the traditional, and that's where you are. Oh, this music is just so dead. Why is it dead? Because the congregation is dead. Okay, they're not getting the word, they're not being fed, they're not doing anything, and so, my goodness alive, that's the way they're going to be. They're going to be dead. And so the music sounds dead. And it sounds dead to them because they can't understand a deep phrase like, when peace like a river attendeth my way. What? Dude, man, I mean, you know, are you going to talk English so I can understand? What they do is they got the, and what we do is begin to put in just a few praise songs. Just a few little courses. We want you to learn this course. These are the steps. It's out there. This is the way they do it. And I'll bet some of you guys have experienced it. Oh, we're just going to put in a few. We've got this course. Now, this is such a good, and they'll put in something that's really cute about praising God. And everybody sort of likes it okay because it's only got 3 or 4 words to it, and we're just going to say it over and over again. And it's got to be right because we're praising God, and the tune is catchy. And there weren't any drums or anything like that, and so it's okay. And you can kind of sit there and just say that over and over and over again, you know, and it's your own little personal mantra to God. And you have a few little praise songs, and then you start to add a few more, and then you have more praise songs. Praise, and again, nothing against these things. I mean, some of them are really incredibly trite, but what the purpose of them, they bring that in. Now they've got more of them, okay? And they're going to put in a few. Yeah, what's the next step? Anybody know? What? Well, okay, yeah, but it even gets more. Well, it even gets more subtle.
Light drums.
No.
Specials.
Specials is a good one. Yeah, that's kind of a subheading underneath here, but it's always there. And how do the specials go? Okay, they don't have the drums there yet. How do they work? They have the what do they call them? The accompaniment tapes. And it starts out with those, David Cato. Who remembers Cato? Y'all remember Cato around here? Were y'all here when Cato was here? Oh, he was so disgusting. I'm going to say it on tape, DVD. Cato, you were disgusting. He would get over here to this keyboard. I just, right now, Mrs. Davis, you listen to this? Yeah. She remembers. He would get on this keyboard, and he would start playing, you know, Just As I Am or something like that. But what you do is add in major 7th chords. Now, Andy is right away going, oh, you know. Now, major 7th chords are real pretty, okay? But what they are is kind of syrupy sweet. And you add these things in just at the right time in the music. And you've all heard it with the electric piano sound. That kind of tinky, you know, thing. And he would get it fixed up just like this, and he would sit there and start playing, you know, Just As I Am, putting in all these little embellishments here and there, and he would turn around, and everybody's sitting here going, won't you come? While the music is playing, won't you come? I mean, you know, it's a wonder he made it out of here alive. We personally sent him to Romania. Oh, it was horrible. It's just horrible. Okay, so you go to more. Let me tell you what the next step is. Now, you make sure that you're doing hymns in this whole thing. You're still doing the hymns, okay? You're doing the hymns, but what happens is you have to do something about that nasty hymnal. And the next thing you do is become an off-the-wall congregation. Now, we're all laughing at this. This is what they do. You're laughing and go, I've seen this. My goodness, I've lived through this. Becomes off the wall. What happens to the hymns? Well, I mean, it's bad enough already. I mean, they laid the foundation of this long ago. Even those that are going, well, I can't believe, you know, we're going over this trashy music and all this other stuff. Okay, if you would turn to page 227, first, second, and last. You know, they skip 43 verses. You ever looked at, in our hymnal, and it's difficult to sing through them all, but is all the verses of O Sacred Head. I mean, how many verses are in that thing that we've got in our hand? 10, something? Is it 8? You know, it takes us half an hour to do that. But you read the words and you go, my goodness. Somebody in here knew God. Somebody in here knew what he was talking about. Somebody in here is giving real theology instead of our favorite. Mrs. Davis, you want to come sing this one? She doesn't. Ignoring me now. We were at a church where this is one of the ones they brought in. Here's the lyrics. I hope I can remember them. I have a destiny with a city on a hill. I have a destiny that I know I must fulfill. I have a destiny and I know something. I can't remember it. Mary, do you remember it? She's trying to forget it. And I know I was born for a time like this. She's losing her. Everybody look carefully in lunch today, okay? But that was it. I remember sitting there going, you know, you're waiting for the second verse. You're waiting for any verse. Nothing biblical, nothing about God, nothing about Jesus, nothing about the Holy Spirit, nothing about theology. And by theology, I mean, you know, biblical beliefs. Nothing. It was New Age. And they sang it quite a while. I didn't sing it. I quit singing it. You know, your first time you're going through, you know, and you're waiting, like I said, you're waiting for something to come up. You know, they're going to get over to the next thing. It's going to happen. It never happened. It wasn't there. So they go to Off the Wall, and it makes sure that music goes away. Now, what do I mean by music? All the harmonies are gone. All that's gone. It becomes, with the specials, what's the big deal about specials? It's SP again. But it's not special, it's spectator. What's going on is it becomes a spectator sport. You're sitting there staring at that. Da, 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 da. And it's so really disgusting too. This is another thing, it's a common thing, it happens with it. And if you just look, you can see it. We went to a church because some of our grandkids were in this vacation Bible school thing. And they had this deal open. It was going to be open for the parents and the grandparents to come, and they were going to do their little deals. So we went, and the opening number, the lead-in act, was the leaders of what was going on up there, and here comes the music. And it was trashy rock junk. And here's all these little kids. I mean, and there's big piles of them. This place is filled with little kids and their parents and all that stuff. And the person up there dressed up as a teddy bear or whatever it was they were doing, you know, sitting there clapping, and the music is boom, ba-boom, ba-boom in the back, and they're singing, and you know, raise your hands and do this. And what do you see the parents doing? To their kids. What do you see the kids doing? Talking, doing whatever. I mean, the whole, there were probably, maybe out of the hundreds that were there, 5 or 6 that were singing along with it. They knew it was dead. They knew there was nothing going on with it. They knew it was showtime. They knew it wasn't real. Down in their spirits, they knew. That's incredible. And there were kids that should have been old enough to obey. The parents were trying to do what? All the parents were living back in high school. All the mommies had on their little cheerleading outfits and pom-poms. And there's the mascot up there. It's showtime. And that's all that went on. So it goes to spectator sport. And eventually you're able to, well, these hymnals are kind of in the way. Now sometimes they just go ahead and leave them there, you know, to make somebody that walks in think that you actually use them. Okay? But when you open it up and the pages begin to fall off and you find that the copyright date was 1894, you know that maybe they haven't in a while. But eventually you're going to get rid of the hymnals and you're getting more used to this spectator sport, and pretty soon it becomes, during the spectator sport, really easy to insert the drums. First with a very small light beat, And that's the way they do it. You don't do the heavy duty thing. I remember at the church that we were at that they went through this thing, and what they started out with was just a little bit, and hardly doing anything. One of the last services that we went to, next to the last service we went to this church before God gave us permission to leave. Now, I used to play in a rock group, and we had a drummer that was fairly good. His left foot was dead, and we used to laugh about that. He really didn't have that, but everything else he could play, and he could do some pretty good drumming. This church opened up with a drum solo. Drum solo. That's what they opened up with. I mean, there wasn't anything else going on. He was praising God with loud bongos, or whatever it was he was doing. No music, no lyrics, no nothing. It's just, and it went on for a number of minutes. Mary and I went outside, and the people that came thought we were the greeting group. That was it, because we were outside waiting for the junk to get over with before and in fact we didn't even go back in for any more of the worship service. But people coming in late, oh, y'all are out here to greet us. Yes, how are you doing? Welcome to the house of well. And we just smiled, and just said hi anyway. And it's just, and we were going, yeah, we would sure like to leave here. Let me tell you, friends, and then it goes on. We've gotten rid of the hymnals, or what's the other step? And I left out one. You're right. What was the other step? Is the very point of all of this thing is the dividing up between the what? Contemporary and the traditional. Okay? Remember me telling you that the youth groups is division, and this is too. So now that we have the contemporary service and the traditional service, what's the traditional service going to be made out of? Gray heads. And guess what? We know is we just wait long enough, they're going to die. Who takes over the church? Those with all the energy and no wisdom. Who is shoved out? The elders are shoved out. And eventually, because there's not too many of them left, and you can hear it right now. Eventually, some of these people begin to go to other churches that are continuing to do this thing, do the hymns and the preaching of the word and all this other stuff. And yes, they've left us, they've gone, but remember the scripture that says that how does it put it? They wouldn't have gone out, it's in 1 John, if they'd been part of us and to begin with. You're right, they're not part of you. You're sure not part of them. And so these people eventually are faded out. The hymnals are done away with. And eventually this is what you wind up with completely. And the whole thing, and I'm telling you this, you don't believe it, you can find this out on the internet, and you can find conferences that tens of thousands of music ministers have gone to. And the final purpose is what we've been talking about here. It is to divide, to divide, to divide. Even when we let's go back to the original subject of judgment against someone. What's the purpose of that? The accuser of the brethren has been cast down. You know what that means? He's not accusing you before God anymore because he doesn't have that right. You're in Christ. But he's joined you, and he's joined the people around you, and he'll whisper in your ear, Mitch didn't get the right haircut last week.
Unbelievable.
Can't change it now.
You know Mitch is from Tennessee. You know his dad works in a nuclear plant. Yep. Mitch is a mutant. And that little whisper in your ear, Mitch the mutant. And it kind of rolls off, and you're able to kind of say that to other, we need to be praying for Mitch. You ever been around him when the lights are out? He glows, but ain't with the glory of God. I'm telling you, the angel of light, Satan himself, has shown up inside him. And the angel of light has shown up inside is your tongue. as you're belittling your brother, and you're agreeing with Satan with your mouth. And it is to bring about the division. Boy, I tell you what, that looks like too much of a mess to be a division. But that's what it's about. Well, that's part of that confusion and every evil thing that we talked about last night from James. And I believe you had your hand up 45 minutes ago.
When you're talking about, emphasizing the important part about the enemy's goal being divide, that you repeated several times. Just so that I can make sure that it's clear, to me, would another way of saying that be that we as believers need to divide from the dividers so they can't divide us anymore? Is that what you're trying to
I have no problem at all saying that. You're naturally divided from them. And they often will leave. You don't have to leave. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that has made me sick, punch those buttons. Get Davis fired up. One of the things that I watch happen in this type of scenario, and I can tell I'm getting fired up. I was going to go till 8 o'clock today. This is y'all's fault. Okay, it's 8:20, so I'm still not too bad. One of the things that I consistently see is kind of what you said. What happens is you got the group of the godly, okay? And they're trying to do what is right. And then here comes these clowns that are, hey, you need to get more contemporary and you need to do all this stuff. And here comes the clashes. What almost invariably happens is eventually the godly go, okay, we'll go somewhere else. They were the ones there with the building and all of this other stuff, but eventually what happens is they go, okay, look, we'll leave. I'm here to tell you something. When Jesus said turn the other cheek, he didn't say turn your brother's other cheek. He didn't say take your family and turn their cheeks up. There are times for that. Ecclesiastes said it pretty well. There is a time for peace, and there's a time for war. And I am tired, I'm really tired, this is me on a personal level, of seeing the godly go, oh, we have to leave because we're turning the other cheek. No, turn their cheek. This is not on an individual thing. You don't have to attack, you don't have to be bad on an individual level. But it is time that the people of the Church of God stood up and said, we're not leaving, you divide from us. Get out. It's time it happened. Oh, we have to vote on that. No, we don't. We got Matthew 18, and it doesn't say one thing about a vote. And you know what? I'm going to tell you something else. Matthew 18 needs to be done sooner than later. I have found out strongly that when you've got a bully, you hit him, and you hit him quick. And I mean you hit him quick and you hit him hard, and I'm not kidding. Ask the greatest generation, the people that fought World War II. Ask them their opinion of Neville Chamberlain. I can tell you what my opinion of Neville Chamberlain is. What's your opinion of Neville Chamberlain? Do you know who Neville Chamberlain was? My good Canadian friends know who Neville Chamberlain was. What was his favorite phrase, my Canadian friends?
Peace in our time.
Ooh. Neville Chamberlain was the guy, he was before, thank God for Churchill. Neville Chamberlain gave away Europe. He bowed and groveled at the feet of Adolf Hitler. Peace in our time. We have accomplished peace in our time. How did you get it? We allowed Hitler to kill millions of people. We allowed him to take over all sorts of countries, and we told him when he did, we'd look the other way. People that we had treaties with and all sorts of, but peace in our time. What, he attacked France? How did that happen? What, he did what? He Czechoslovakia, Poland? Oh no, he said he wasn't going to do it. You understand? There is no peace. There is no peace. There is no peace. There is no peace without a war to establish that peace. You can just get it. This is not fluff and games. This is the reality of the situation, and it is time that the people in some of these churches said, no, we're not going to tolerate your stuff. No, you're not going to come in here with contemporary Christian music. No, you're not going to come in here with your stupid youth group ideas. No, you're not going to. Get out. We're inviting you right now. Get out. Well, that's not very Christian. It sure is. You bet it is. There was a day that a man walked into the temple of God. He walked into the temple of God. And he looked around. And after looking at everything, he went down and he calmly sat down. And he took some pieces of leather. And he began to calmly, very purposely, weave them together. Sitting there in the house of God, weaving these things together. And then he stood up with that thing, and he walked over to some tables, and he began to remove the competition. God is a monopoly. God doesn't go over well in this country. Well, the Trade Commission is a little concerned about God. It appears that he thinks that he should be a monopoly. And if it was good enough for Jesus Christ to step into the temple of God and rather violently, never said anger. When people, oh, Jesus got angry. Where? It doesn't say that. I think he did it very methodically and very purposely. I mean, he's dealing with cattle and other beasts. And he removed the competition. You don't have to be angry to hit a cow. I've hit a number of cows. I've hit a number of steers. Done my best to dodge the bulls, but there's times that you have to do that too, on the other side of a very large fence. Or whatever it is, you move the thing out of the way. And when it's people that are being beasts, you remove them also. And he threw their tables over. They were being thieves. They were stealing from people. It was in the court of the Gentiles where evangelism was supposed to be going on. It was where truth was supposed to be given to the rest of the nations. And Jesus said, enough of this. And he removed the competition. In your own individual lives, my friends, in our own individual lives, what is your competition? What are the other competing affections that you have? Is it contemporary music? Is it movies? Is it books? Is it religion? Is it your theologies? What is the competing competition? The competing things that are pulling at your heart. And I ask you to invite God in, invite the Son of God in, and say, pick up the whip, sir, and you deal with it. You need to remove the competition in your life because that is not denying the power of godliness in your life. Godliness is lined up with Christ, and he removed the competition. In your own lives, you need to remove the competition for that power. And you need to understand you are in a war. You're in a war. And in this country, it's a war like we've never had before. We've never had this kind of stuff going on to where the church itself was involved in how can we make you more worldly. Was it you?
Yeah. And just kind of going back to the youth group, I think you kind of basically hit it. I mean, they take away, and the church. Now the big thing is taking away the pews, and you get your individual movie theater seats that recline and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to keep your bubble and that sense of security, it's very subtle.
Yeah, it is subtle. And you know, you're not, and I know what you're saying. You're not saying, oh, we have to have traditional pews. What was the purpose of the pews? So you could seat more people. That's all it was. But he's right. It's real subtle. There is one church I know that's taken the subtlety even further. Anybody know what they did? I think this is out in California. Drive-ins. Serious. I'm serious. You know, remember the drive-in theaters? I don't know if y'all have ever seen them, but you know, when I was growing up, drive-in theaters. You drove in. There's a little pole there, and it had a speaker. And you got that, and you put it in your car, and you sat there, and you watched the movie up on this humongous screen. Okay, outside. And what you did was you drove in. There is a church now that's a drive-in church. You pull into your little spot. You got this big screen up there. You sit all, in your little car and away from everybody else. You can beat your kids if you need to. And you got the speaker there, and you're able to listen to it. And when it's done, you roll up your windows and leave. You can find it under Fellowship of the Saints. Boy, that'd be good. Come and join our fellowship. I mean, it's amazing, but that's what they've gone to in this one place, yeah.
And also about the youth groups, it's not only division, but it's also taking away the teachings, because it says have the old men teach the young men, and the old women teach the young women, and now the youth groups, all they do is basically teach is with the music and everything is to be led by your emotions, follow your emotions, because that's all the music is about, my emotions. And pretty much all the sermons are about is emotions. So,
that's right.
So they're being taught to be led by their emotions. That's why we're getting guys with no backbone and feminazis.
That's right.
So to speak, is because that's what they're teaching in the youth group.
And who's doing the teaching? How old are youth pastors? Yeah, they're in their 20s. They're in their teens. They're still needing their dieties changed. Most of them, anyway. I'm serious. What are we doing? This is pretty incredible. And by the way, with that attitude, and I'm telling you, the parents are at fault here. The parents are at fault. Don't you kid yourself. This is one of the main reasons too that we have lost. I don't say we're losing. This is one of the main reasons we have lost the battle on abortion. Because the church has said that at heart abortion is a good thing. That's not true. The church at heart has said abortion is a good thing. What is abortion? Abortion is saying this life, this being that I have developed either in my body or somebody is saying that I helped it on the other side, that thing is going to be an inconvenience for me. I don't want to have to take anything out of my life to teach it about godliness and raise it to life. I don't want to have to do that. Welcome to Sunday school and youth groups. It's exactly the same attitude. What does it say in, you don't have to look it up. Now let's look it up. You got to hear this. Do you know how far I got my notes? I didn't. But I'm about to read. Mrs. Davis, did you have anything you want to add to any of this? You sure? She's probably afraid she'd kill you all. Stay. Turn to Deuteronomy. I thought of Mrs. Davis during the tirade I'm about to get on to because she could tirade better than I could tirade on this. Let me tell you about the godly lady in there getting dinner or lunch ready for us. Her favorite book is Deuteronomy, and she reads the Deuteronomy for the day. And one day she said this a lot. She said, you know what the problem is that we look at this one scripture and we go, that's it, and we were told this with these people. Turn to Deuteronomy chapter 6. We're told that here's what we're supposed to be doing. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7. And you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. Okay. And everybody goes, now the important part of that is it's speaking to parents. And that's what it's parents that are supposed to be doing that. Not the youth pastor, not another pastor, not the Sunday school teacher. It's supposed to be the parents. But what have they left out? And they do it consistently right before that. Verse 4, Shema, O Israel. Yahweh our God, Yahweh is one. You shall love Yahweh your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your might, except for the parts where you have to be worshiping football players and Hollywood and all of this other stuff. And these words, which I am commanding you today, shall be on your heart and. When you see and but, and therefore, friends, that's a connector. That's a connector. It is connected there in the... does it actually have the word and in there?
Yes,
It does. Okay, and in the Hebrew it does, okay? It's got and. So we got the thing connected. But step number 1, these words which I'm commanding you today shall be where? In your pew? In your Bible? Somebody else? The person that you paid to do the religion for you? Your youth pastor? No, your heart. Your heart first. This is the same thing we talked about. The key to effective ministry is me first, me first, me first. They shall be on your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your sons, and shall talk with them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontals on your foreheads. You shall write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Not somebody else's gates, not somebody else's house, yours. Not somebody else's frontals, not somebody else's hand, yours. And we keep wanting to do it by programs and manipulation and lies. Now, I know your thoughts. I know your thoughts. You're thinking, this was for them back then. And you're desperately wanting to say that to me in class. I know you are. But that's what you're going to get from other people. Oh, that was for Israel. That was a long, long time ago. And, we shouldn't be concerned about that, You can get ready for that fight. But friends, there it is right there. There's the pattern. My God doesn't change. I mean, other people tend to evolve from time to time. From what I can tell, with most people, he's going backwards. My God doesn't change. Neither does yours. Okay?